Donnie Bryan is our guest speaker tonight. He's the vice president of the Middle Tennessee Wild Ones chapter. You're originally from Alabama, which is cool. Moved up to Nashville though, and you've given a couple of garden tours at your place. And you're going to be talking about gardening for a year-round interest.
Yes.
So I'll let you introduce yourself further.
I was a high school arts teacher for 37 years, and I retired, and I thought I was going to paint. I was good at electricity because I was the tech director for the school theater. I had a dream job there the last 10 years. I opened a $21.7 million high school theater. And it was amazing. I had Tim McGraw's children and Martina McBride's children. Vince Gill and Amy Grant performed, and Vince taught guitar often. But it was a dream school. And but I was tired. 37 years was a long time. So I wanted to travel. I'm a foodie. I like to eat all types of good foods. And I wanted to travel and do something different, but I didn't know what that was. And our Wild Ones group was just organizing. We were a seedling chapter at the time, and Grow Wild, Native Plant Nursery and Farm, hosted a tour. And I left there with my first native plant, and I knew exactly what I was going to do with my retirement. So that's a little about me. I raised two daughters. They're full grown and finally on their own. So I'm free to be me. I garden 12 months out of the year. I go into the garden on cold days in the winter. I have a lot to see there. I am not moving. My slide is not moving. They're on this one, and I'm pressing play, and it's not moving. Let me escape here. I've never had that happen. I'm pressing play, and it's not. Do you know?
Try to troubleshoot. Let's see if we can figure it out. I wonder if it has something to do. Oh, you just have to like click.
Oh, on this. I was using the arrow. So on one of my retirement trips to France, I went out of Paris to Giverny, and I saw Monet, the painter's home and garden. I've had a chance to go back a second time, but this was my inspiration. I knew I was going to do something like this. It would not be on this scale, and it would be completely different. I've learned, like many of you, that native plants provide nectar for pollinators, including hummingbirds, native bees, butterflies, moths, and even bats. They provide protective shelter for many mammals. The native nuts, seeds, and fruits produced by these plants offer essential foods for all forms of wildlife. Native plants also create homes for small animals and both warm and cold-blooded, and microscopic organisms in the soil. All these living things have jobs to do. The natural environment premises a symbiotic relationship. And I think perhaps my favorite is that gardening with native plants offers a sense of time and a sense of place. Native plants add splendor to any landscape. A lot of people think that it can be weedy or it can be dull at different times. Your native garden can be a natural space designed, if you want, with harmony, unity, and interest. And it can provide a wealth of colors, varying textures and heights and bloom times, resulting in a stunning display over multiple seasons. Even when there aren't many blooms, the native garden can still be an interesting place to be. I had to build stacked rock terraces and retention walls because I garden straight up a hillside. There are 26 steps to my front door. So I garden straight up a hillside. And so I hauled, you can see there the terraces, and I hauled rocks from many days from the driveway to build these terraces and my water garden. It looked like this in my neighborhood for a while. I did 4 of those. So that was over 4 ton and maybe closer to 6. But it was worth it. I created a beautiful place for my water plants, and it's all just dry stacked rocks. And the water brings in so many beautiful things that I might not normally see. And I love the sound of water in the garden. I used the first year, I used water lettuce to help keep the algae out and shadow from the sun. That's not native. And I tried duckweed, but I had 5 thriving goldfish and they ate it all, every bit of it. So I'm back to using some of the water lettuces to shade. And you might notice there the Japanese maples. I'd already put those in my native garden before I knew it was going to be a native garden. They were gifts from my retirement because I told them I was going to build some type of garden. And so they mean a lot to me. They stay very small and they don't bother anybody. So I'm fine with them being there. I don't know. Now we're going. It was going backward. Okay. There. Some of the water garden plants, I have the native copper iris. I have the very rare grass of Parnassus. I have the grassy arrowhead. I've got the southern and the northern blue flag and the Louisiana iris. I don't know why I'm still not, there we go. Okay, so I see all of this every day, and I'll jump up from my chair and run out when I see the hummingbirds feeding. And I love to hear the tree frogs at night. The skinks live in the dry stacked rock walls. They absolutely love it. It's a perfect place for them. I like to add a little whimsy into my garden. So I gave my woolly Dutchman pipevine a metal tower. We lost 14 of the laurel sassafras trees to laurel wilt. I'm about to have my last 5 cut. They're hollow inside. So I left the part of the trunks and added the whispering Willem twins to those trees, and then lost an elm because it split down the middle, and I use it as a pedestal for my atlas and globe. Every spring I see the ephemerals come in, and they emerge to take advantage of the trees being bare of leaves and take in that sun. They start popping up through the leaves, and I have early saxifrage and also cutleaf toothwort. Not long after that, I see the yellow trout lily. It takes 7 years for a trout lily to bloom. It has to have 2 leaves, and they're 1 leaf for the first 7 years. I've added the white trout lily. I have trilliums. These trilliums here are native to my neighborhood. This one we use the nickname Sweet Betsy, but they're forming huge colonies, as many as 8 or 10 to a colony now, and they're popping up all over, and I love that. I have the white Trillium grandiflorum. In about 2 weeks after you get that gorgeous bloom, it turns pink, and it can even turn a red pink. And then I have the trillium called Stinking Benjamin. It doesn't, that flower doesn't smell very good, but it's got a beautiful bright red bloom with some green sepals around it. I added the yellow trillium. I had none of them, and this year I counted over a dozen. So the first few that I planted, they're seeding very well. One of the first 7 plants I bought was rue anemone, and about the second year, I slid down the hill and peeled it off at the ground level. It didn't phase it; it came right back. So I like how hardy native plants can be. The false rue anemone actually blooms a little bit later than that. I love the Dutchman's breeches, and I'm getting small colonies of that and a few blooms. I'm getting a lot of the bellwort blooms, and it's starting to form colonies as well. I'm going to be able to share some of these very, very soon. Also in the early spring, I see spring beauty and the dwarf crested irises. These are all photos from my garden, by the way. So these are things that I see in photograph. I have the twin leaf, Jeffersonia dephila, and this came from Monticello. You know, Thomas Jefferson was an avid gardener, and I'll tell you about their plant sales a little bit later on. What else did I want to mention? Oops, I'm going forward and I can't stop myself. I'm not sure I'm just hitting it and it's going. No.
Trying to, we should click on this to go back.
No, I'm thinking this will go bad.
No, it's going forward. Try.
See, I always do here. Oh, wait. Okay. All right, that's going. Oh.
Let's see it. That's good.
All right, boy, we went. All right. All right, good. And I love the sharp-lobed hepatica. Those come in white for me, but get a little pink tint to them a little later. Virginia bluebells, who doesn't love them? I have quite a few on my hillside. At Edwin Warner Park near me, there are valleys and valleys. It's an ocean of blue every year, and we go walking there. These bloom for 3 weeks. For me, it's March to April, anywhere in there. It's an early source of nectar and pollen for bumblebees, digger bees, and mason bees. And it also has other visitors, the bee flies, the butterflies, skippers, sphinx moths, and even hummingbirds if they're here that early. I have wild geranium. I have a wild geranium in a flower pot that is very, very happy. The celandine poppies are starting to pop up all over the woods. The Jacob's ladder. Do you remember when we had a -3 degrees in December? This Jacob's ladder started blooming during that freeze in December, and it never quit. It bloomed the rest of the winter. They can be funny sometimes. I love my Jack in the pulpits. The berries the fruits are turning red right now, and it's fun to watch the birds try to figure out what to do with them. But I have Jack in the pulpits pop up all over the woods, and I also have the American version of lily of the valley. A lot of people didn't know that there is a native lily of the valley, but there is. My start of it came from Monticello as well. And blue violets are everywhere. I've since added some other blue violets. I leave them as long as they don't get too carried away, and I have to move some around. But it's such a great early source for the bees that I think that's very important. I've added silver maple, serviceberry, and crossvine is up in my trees. I can spy hummingbirds after it if they're here that early. They were a little late for me this year. I have a May apple colony just outside my fenced-in garden. It's on my property, and I love May apple. The land turtles eat the fruit. Deer does as well, and it's just a fun plant to have in the spring. Um, my buckeye is about 3 times this big since I took this photo. It's very, very happy. It has 5 buckeyes on it right now. I'm waiting for them to split and try to beat the squirrels to them. Um, in early spring, I love seeing the spice bush bloom before it gets its leaves and then berries. But that's it. It's beautiful foliage in the fall. And it's in the sassafras family, but it's not been affected by the laurel wilt that my sassafras trees have. So hopefully I'm okay. And I think those caterpillars are just darn cute. So I look for them all the time on my spice bushes. I leave the fleabane, just like the wild violets, until I need the space. You see the small pollinator on there, and I think they're very helpful in the mid-spring. I get a lot of small action on my golden Alexanders for the small bees, and we have the fire pink is native to my neighborhood. I love this plant. And then I have a golden ragwort that I've added to my garden. Um, I have blue phlox that comes in, and it's already gone dormant, of course. And there's something about it that my squirrels love to dig this plant up over and over and over again. I don't know. I don't know how much of it I'll see this year, but it was sure beautiful this past spring. I found shooting star, and it really is doing great in my woodland garden. It likes to be in the shade, and I love that plant. It's an unusual native. See, I always share the variety that I have during all the 12 months out of the year, because a lot of people don't realize how diverse your blooms, colors, and heights and vines and so forth can be. I love my valley of Columbine, and so do the Hummers. They're all over that when they first arrive. And then one of my more unusual violets is the bird's foot violet. And then the violet wood sorrels come in. I have to be really careful when the violet wood sorrel is dormant. I've added plants, and I really have wiped out a lot of it. So I've got to definitely be more careful. I love the dogwoods that come in the spring, and then we see the red buds bloom, and the American bladdernut tree I have, that's an understory. I've added the Florida flame azaleas. I have 2 of them, and the sweet azalea. I don't know how they came up with Florida flame as a name, because that azalea was discovered in Alabama before it was discovered anywhere else. But I absolutely love that. Mine have not bloomed since that freeze I mentioned. And I'm hoping they're healthy and huge, but I'm hoping to see blooms this next spring. Um, I like the Virginia sweet spire too. I have 2 of them. They're both really small right now. Coral honeysuckle has changed the life of my hummingbirds. I planted this intentionally near the hummingbird feeder, and they stay on this all day. They're just frequent visitors to the coral honeysuckle. I have Solomon seal and false Solomon seal in my woods, and also the wild comfrey is native to my neighborhood. I didn't plant it. I had 1 plant for 2 years. Now I have 2. So there's hope that we'll see more. I didn't know this plant until I went hiking out in Montgomery Bell State Park in Tennessee, and I kept Snapchatting it to try to figure out what it was. But I really enjoy it. I love my spiderworts. I have 3 varieties. I don't know if you know, but those can be 6 inches tall to about 2 feet. There's everything in the middle of those as well. I like my penstemon, the butterfly weed for the monarchs and for other butterflies. I have downy wood mint and false indigo. I'm having to move my false indigo. It's in the front, and I'm moving it to the side of my driveway. As we garden, we all learn that that's just going to be a little too big for this spot right here. So I've made all the mistakes in the world, and I keep going. This is blanket flower. Some people call it Indian blanket flower because it resembles those beautiful colors in our Native American Indian blankets. Um, I don't go out there and look at this plant without seeing bees on it. They're on there all day. This is one of my this bloomed really early this year, more like in April. And last year, I still had blooms in December. It's very, very hardy. It takes it a long time to go dormant. But I brought 2 of these plants tonight. If you're lucky to take one home, it's a nice start to have. Um, here are a lot of natives that come and go. The blue-eyed grass is native to my neighborhood. The cinquefoil is in the rose family. And the cinquefoil is a ground cover for the shade if you need that. It's a nice ground cover for the shade. And then the Canadian white violet, I also have the cream stripe violet. And do you know about the heal-all plant? It's a plant with medicinal qualities, and it's a nice low-growing plant in the garden. And then the showy evening primrose, that's a nice one for the pollinators. It's a spreader and can be a ground cover in the sun. And lyre leaf sage likes the sun, and it has some nice stems on it as well. It's got a lyre shaped leaf, so it's an interesting low growing to the ground. It would make a nice I think it would make a nice ground cover if it was in the sun where it could spread out. And lobed coreopsis is another low growing plant, and it does fairly well in the shade for me. I mentioned that I had the wild geranium. There it is in the pot. I love the wild 4 o'clocks. It's fun to go out at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and see that the blooms are opening. It has a fun story behind that plant that they bloom at 4 o'clock. And sure enough, the pollinators seem to know that and come looking for them. The Indian pink was another garden gift that I got from another native gardener. I love this plant. And I'm moving it into other areas to get that beautiful pop of color. Those blooms are gorgeous. Also in the late spring, I've added a wild cherry. I'm nurturing it. It came up on its own, but I'm nurturing it because that's definitely a food source for my birds and mammals. I've added fragrant sumac, and I bought them for $10, bare root from Monticello, and they should pay me to do this. And I'm buying 6 more to put on one side of my house. They're low growing and have a nice, pleasant smell. That's indicative of the name. I've got oak leaf hydrangeas, and if you have room, the American black elderberry is a great source of food. And you know, a lot of people use the juice of the or even make jams with the jelly and everything. I learned that I'm allergic to those berries. I almost had to go to the ER after drinking a half a bottle of juice. But if you have room, it can get up to 5 feet wide. It can be up to eight feet or more tall, but it's going to take some room. I dug mine out, potted it up, and took it to our native plant sale so it could find the right home. Also, raspberries and blackberries are really good to have. They give you all the fruit juices, and I'm checking my time, and they're fun for the birds. The hummingbirds, I don't know if you know this, but they will puncture blackberries and pokeberries and drink the juice from there. They like that. I have several coneflowers. The one that doesn't like me in Nashville is Tennessee coneflowers. It does not want to live on my property. I have one left, and it's lost its flower head, but I'm still hoping. I've removed a peach tree, and because I was never going to get those donut peaches. The squirrels were going to get them, the chipmunks, and the downy woodpeckers. So after that's moved completely, there will be the perfect spot to grow the Tennessee coneflowers. Orange coneflowers come up all in my front yard, and I pot them up, and I'm thinking, this is $200 I'm raising for my Wild Ones group, and that they were coming up just all over the front lawn. So that's what I do with those. Now, why did you go back there? Okay. I have plains coreopsis in the front and the back, and I like to mix it with Culver's root because it makes kind of a bouquet in the garden. Plains coreopsis is native in Columbia, Tennessee, but it's in the lower 48 states. It comes in a lot of seed packets. It works as a biennial for me. It comes, they'll be coming up very soon, and then they'll stay all winter, and then they'll flower in all summer almost, and then they die back and seed. I see the goldfinches on these. They love those seeds, and they also love the bushy brown-eyed Susan seeds as well. That's a dusky wing butterfly. Rita Venable, my good friend who wrote Butterflies of Tennessee, she just told me to enjoy it as a dusky wing. She wasn't sure which one it was. They're hard, the markings are different. They're hard to tell sometimes. I have a wild bergamot, Monarda. I love this. All the pollinators love it. Bees, hummers. I see the butterflies on this as long as it's blooming. This is one of my favorites. I love them so because I grew them from seed. But I have the shrubby St. John's wort, and the seed heads right now are absolutely gorgeous. But look at that bloom there in the center. They are so beautiful when they're covered with blooms. And I also have the spotted St. John's wort, and it's much smaller and a lot less impressive. But I'm noticing that this shrubby St. John's wort is dominant because it's really running out the common St. John's wort. The prairie coneflowers now have gone to seed in my front. They're on the other side of my driveway, and they're like 6 feet tall, if not taller. And I stand at my dining room window watching the finches after those seeds. I'm really excited about the white vervain. Look at that head of hair there on the left. This is native to my neighborhood. At first, I didn't know what it was, and I started figuring out it attracts. You see the little pollinator on it, but also it gets bumblebees and larger bees as well. Clustered mountain mint is one of my favorite native garden plants. If I could only have one native in my yard, it would be a clustered mountain mint. Pollinators are on it early in the morning, and they're on it late in the afternoon as well. They love this plant. And then I have slender mountain mint. I have Downy wood mint and Horry mountain mint, and one that's just called wild mint that has the little round flowers on it. So I'm an advocate for mint because it really attracts a variety of pollinators to it. I love the milkweeds, and don't ever panic when you see the bugs, milkweed bugs come out like that. They're not hurting your plant. The mealy bugs aren't going to kill your plants. The aphids, the finches are going to, and the we have the little oh, I'm brain dead. Uh, uh, we have the all of our little songbirds like to go over to eat the aphids off of the plant. So it just is doing what milkweed plants do. I leave it and don't panic when I see more than pollinator action on it because it's going to be just fine. This is what I want to see on my milkweed. This happened, I told you about all those steps. This happened right by my front steps. And it was the most exciting thing to see emerge. They have not shown up yet, and I miss them. But I sat out front and filmed as much as I could. They hung over my garage area. They were under the windows. They were in the shrubs. And when I saw the one emerge and its wings unfold, it made me cry. And I went, this is what I was meant to do with my retirement. And I absolutely am in heaven in the garden. This was a rescue for me, slender dayflower. Now, this is not to be confused with its imitator, Asiatic dayflower. Asiatic dayflower has a smaller bloom, it's less impressive, and it's got a rounder leaf. The slender dayflower has slender leaves, and their placement on the plant is like a ladder. So yeah, they're opposite. But I rescued this. They were about to mow it in my retention pond, and I saved it. I cringe every time I see them mow at that retention pond, but I get it. I love my passion flower vine, and it has a tower of its own, and it wants to climb the common milkweed and everybody else too. But I love it, and I think that's one of the most beautiful flowers. It's one of our state flowers in Tennessee, and I love the prairie sundrops. They live in the front. You get a nice show in the fall when those leaves turn red and burnt orange. And then the wild petunia is native to my neighborhood. It grows everywhere, all over the hillsides, and I love it. This is a fun plant. Many of you have not heard of this one, Western Indian Physic. It's in the lower 48 states of the United States. I got my start from Monticello. You get these, it's a triple play. You get these beautiful star-like flowers in the summer. And then right now it's got those beautiful seed pods on there. And then in a few weeks, well, it's already starting to turn orange, blood orange, and red. So it's nice foliage. This is a border across my entire front yard garden. It hangs out over those stacked rock walls, and I just absolutely love this plant. I brought you some seed packets if you're lucky enough to get one. This is a good one to have. I love the cardinal flowers, and I use them as accents everywhere that it can stay a little wet. They like to be wet. On one side of my house, there's like 1,000 of these coming up right now. So I'm going to be potting them up as well. They're almost ready to go now. This is my hummingbird magnet and long-tongued bees. They love the nectar that the lobelias give. This is a new plant. It was living, the seed came in a mint seed packet. because I know where I planted it and it had to have been in that seed packet with the mint. But it's really cool. It's in the lower 48 states. It prefers sunny, wet to moist habitats. It's a water horehound, and it's a member of the mint family. So it's distinguished by its lobed lower leaves, which its relatives lack, and it's attractive to small pollinators. I love to see the little tiny pollinators getting their fair share as well. I like a lot of tall structure and a lot of border plants. Love rattlesnake master. It's a great accent for you to put in the back of a bed or in the back of a garden. Blazing star, I would like to see this popping up all through my hillside garden. Nodding onion is a good border plant. I am going to use it as a border out front, and I'm going to border a new bed that I'm starting it with it. It's the perfect choice there. If you've got a ditch or somewhere you don't want to mow, purple prairie clover is a treasure. It's starting to bloom right now for me. I don't have much of it, but it's a nice ground cover where if it's where you can have it, and of course the bees love it. I have showy tick truffle out front and in the back. And I come in and there's 50 seeds on my pants. I'm a carrier of seed for that one. And I have the hoary vervain. Some people call it blue vervain, but there is another variety that's actually called the blue vervain. Virgin's bower climbs up one of my trees. I've got 3 button bushes that have made them into 6, I think. I've got the native red hibiscus, and I've got the trumpet creeper growing up one side of my fence. I know, I've been warned. And I go out and pick the seed beans, and I don't let them drop. I trim it when it's needed, and I'm not letting it grow up my neighbor's tree house or the tree. And my thought right now, I'm about to turn 65. It's the next guy's problem. But I love to see the pollinators on it. They love it. I have persimmon trees. I have beautiful persimmon trees. And I've not ever made jelly. I may give it a shot this year. They're falling now. And my mammals love them. The bees love them. I even saw a butterfly on one of them. The hickory nuts hit the deck and it sounds like a bomb hitting out there. But I have 2 varieties of hickory. I absolutely love the shagbark hickory. That's got a beautiful bark to it. And that's my Carolina buckthorn. It's a treasure. It looks like a beautiful umbrella at my fence. And of course, it's a fruiting understory tree. It's a good understory tree. The osier dogwood I have out in one of the beds in the front. I've added them to my hillside garden. This one has bloomed all summer. It had fruit a month ago and it's blooming still. And it's a very happy summer dogwood bloom, but it really is happy. In the winter, that goes blood red, those stems. It's beautiful. Anise hyssop is not native to my state. I don't know about here, but it's nearby Nashville. And we all sell it and use it because it's such a great pollinator plant. And of course, any of the Joe Pye weeds will attract the monarchs like crazy. Jewelweed, my jewelweed's 5 feet high this year. I love the jewelweed. It's also a nectar. Now it's got to be wet. It will wilt and look terrible if it's not. I do have to spray water on it every on these hot afternoons. I'm proud of my swamp thistle. I grew them from seed, and they are a biennial for me, and I think here too. But that is one of the largest thistles blooms that's out there. and they last a long time. And I'm not having these coming up all over the garden. I worried that I'd be pulling out thistle, but I think it's a beautiful pollinator plant. And then I have the downy skullcap, and it's in a woodland setting and it's blooming just fine. It's not getting all that much sun, but it's very, very happy. Do you know about cup plant? So cup plant is has a little cup where the leaves are connected to the stem, and it collects water and holds it for several days even. And I even seen the hummingbirds drink water right out of there. But some of the small birds, like the chickadees, they will go and drink water out of that as well. I've got white turtle head in my wet garden. Evening primrose got 8 feet this year. I love watching that plant in the morning. If I'm up early and I'm having coffee, they're open. But as soon as the sun gets on them, they close. And then I have the narrow leaf sunflower. This one is the Helianthus augustiflorum, augustifolium. Yes, and it is it's not blooming yet. It survives the first 3 frosts for me. It will go through 3 freezes and still be blooming. But it's a giant plant in the center of my garden. In the fall, I get my asters to bloom. I have bluewood asters, smooth asters, New England asters, and the bottom center is the white panicled aster. All of my asters were native to my neighborhood except the New England asters. My New England asters bloomed the 1st of June. It was crazy. Everything has been early this year. It's been some strange blooming periods, but I love it, and I'm just like, I'll take it what it gives me. This is the blue stem goldenrod. It's also nicknamed wreath goldenrod. It's a goldenrod that prefers the shade or a woodland setting. That's native to my neighborhood, and so is the blue mist flower. Ironweed, I loved watching it coming down here. It was beautiful on sides of the road. I have a tall ironweed that's about 10 feet tall. I call them architectural accents in the garden. These are all my goldenrods. The first one I had is the one on the bottom. It's a nativar. It's called firework goldenrod. And then I have the showy goldenrod that is over there on the right. The zigzag goldenrod is on the bottom in right side bottom, and that grows in the woods. It likes a woodland setting. There's sweet scented goldenrod or anise scented goldenrod, and then the one in the top left, that's the Canadense, the real tall goldenrod. I'm going to have to pull about 20 of them out of my garden this year, but I still like them, and I'm not going to take them all the way out. And then that's a wrinkle leaf goldenrod that looks like the little feather in the bottom left. When snake root starts blooming, I know that fall is here. That's one of my last flowers to bloom, is the snake root. And I don't know if you know the story, but Abraham Lincoln's mother allegedly drank milk that the cow had eaten snake root. It's poisonous, and she died of snake root poisoning. They just about got that to where the cows don't eat it these days, but it's still a possibility. This is a dangerous plant to have if you have children who would try to taste it, but I don't have that, and I don't have dogs back there, but I love it. It's beautiful, and the hillside looks like a snow cap in the fall. My frostweed is blooming now. I'll show you what happens with that in the winter. And the American beautyberry is making berries right now. So I love my berry plants that are feeding. I saw the sneezeweed on the side of the roads. Despite the drought, it's happy, growing in the cracks and crevices of the pavement. I left my Virginia creeper on one of my trees. I want it to get to the point of providing the fruit to the wildlife, and it's beautiful in the fall, but it can really take over. So the coralberry bush was the first plant. That was the plant I took home from Grow Wild. That was my first native plant that I added. It will be making berries soon, and it's not a popular food for the wildlife. Robins and cardinals will eat it, but it's considered a last resort plant when there's nothing else. The wildlife enjoy that. Now, I let my garden sleep in. I leave the leaves. The leaves are my mulch, and I leave it for habitat and foraging. The leaves help maintain the moisture. As they deteriorate, it's the best food nutrient cycle you can give. And I use it for mulching the flower beds, trees, and plants. And I've had more lightning bugs this year than ever before. The only thing that I have to do is when it piles up over the rosettes, like that shooting star plant or the blue or red lobelia, I have to go move it off of them so they can push on through. But I leave it. The winter garden is a fun place for me. Native plants don't stop giving when they stop blooming. Seed and fruit are essential food. The songbirds eat the seed all winter, and insects overwinter in the stems and down in the roots. I think they add some structural and interest, and they provide cover and some visual interest. I've added spotted wintergreen that stays beautiful all winter. I love watching what happens to the seed pods and as all that's blowing all over the hillside garden. And I have probably 8 or 10 Christmas ferns scattered all over. And there on the right bottom, that's what frostweed does in the winter. It looks like Santa Claus's beard on the ground. I have real tall ones up in the front of my garden because I want to have my coffee and look out the window and see the frost and weed in the morning. So I really love that. I mentioned the osier dogwood. That was beautiful in the snow we got. We get snows in Nashville almost every winter, and it was gorgeous in the snow. I love my partridge berry. The winter partridge berry provides the fruit for the birds as well. So I have that as a food source, and it's growing out of my rock walls. I'm going to share with you some of my rare and unusual native plants. Now, this pink lady slipper was never in the wild. Poaching is illegal. She was grown in a greenhouse. And the first 2 years, they were happy. This year, I got 1 leaf, not 2 leaves, so they didn't bloom. They're very picky. They have to have certain types of bacteria in the soil to actually produce like that. But I have high hopes for them. I'm watching for them. What I did have huge success with was the lesser yellow lady slippers orchid, and it still have the green leaves on it. I'm hoping that one really starts to spread because it was so happy in the garden. The bottle gentian will be blooming in the next month. The cream gentian is blooming now. These are disappearing from our landscape. These are plants that are endangered. The bees have to pry the gentian open. The blossoms don't open, but the bees they know what they're doing, and they go in for pollinating by prying them open. I have pitcher plants in my water garden. They eat flies and mosquitoes. They require proteins, and they are able to digest that. The little pitcher ends open, the bug goes in and it closes. But look at the beautiful flower they produce. The Dixie lace is a native that was invented or created to put out in the wild in Alabama, Tennessee, all the way up to North Carolina where it was created. And this is one of the pitcher plants that the Grow Wild Native Nursery sells. So that was my source. I love strawberry bush, also called hearts of busting. And one was already on my property, and I've added 4 more to the property. The blooms aren't very impressive, but then they pick up. I like the creepy doll's eyes, baneberry. Poisonous to most, but there are some of the birds and mammals that will eat them. But it has a nice feathery bloom that's kind of orchid-like. Royal Catchfly is a new plant for me. I've grown it from seed, and it's going to border the other part of my front garden. It is also in the cannibal category. It is able to the flies and small well, there's even small bees that get sacrificed, but they stick to it, and it does produce an enzyme to digest it. It doesn't need the protein, and it's believed that it's to protect the flower and everything. But I brought several packets of seed to this gorgeous plant, if you're lucky enough to take those home. I'm still working on my euphorbia. Snow on the mountain and fire on the mountain is a struggle for me, but I've not given up on it. I'm going to do another round of seed this spring. That's the native poinsettia that is native to here as well. This is in my top 3 favorite plants. It's Illinois bundleflower. And it's a prairie plant, but look at those seed pods. The flower is pretty impressive as well. But I love the seed pods. Here are some of the animals I see: the little fence lizard, the walking sticks. I get all varieties of butterfly: the red admiral, the question mark commas, the zebra swallowtail, buckeyes. I get I think that's a hackberry emperor, but I get lots of butterflies. I run all day. I didn't have time to upload the video, but I took it was a new spice bush swallowtail that he had just appeared. And I also saw a pipevine swallowtail. He must have just emerged. He was perfect. You could see the youth. Yeah, I was like, it was beautiful. But I do absolutely love watching the bees on my pollen and nectar plants. And I love the birds. We feed the birds. My garden is a bird feeder, but we have a variety of birds. Because we feed them mealy worms and the expensive suets, we get these these migrating birds. 6 years in a row, these summer tanagers have raised their babies in my garden. They come from South America every year. The hummingbirds, as I mentioned, we have only the ruby throat hummingbird. They've been bringing their 3 juveniles to the feeder, and we get the beautiful rose-breasted grosbeaks. We have seen the blue grosbeaks and the evening grosbeaks as well. And I believe I laid eyes on an indigo blue bunting once. I wasn't sure. We get little devils in the garden. These guys need horns. Of course, the chipmunks take far more than their share. They dig up new plants. I put little Dollar Tree baskets over new plants. And for some reason, they're afraid of it, but they don't mess with that plant until it can get established. So if you have that trouble with squirrels and chipmunks, you might try it. In the winter, the flying squirrels take over all the bird houses. And in the spring, we have to empty all the nuts out of the bird houses because they'll still have their stash in there. I take a pallet. I've got 2 of these. I took a pallet and I started piling brush and peat and extra soil. And I built up, they're as high as me, two of them now. And this is where the birds take their fledglings. It's not an eyesore to me because look how beautiful the likings and things of. I noticed that I was nurturing other organisms in there as well. So I was very tickled about it. What it did do is give the chipmunks a playground that they started leaving everything else alone with for the most part. So it was helpful. But that's how it all started right there. And I gave them a few plants they could dig up, and they play in between the pallets with the brush on top. I'm a believer of putting holes in logs, and I've seen the mining bees and the different bees come into them, and I'm real excited to be doing more of this. I took this video, and they actually do occupy the hotel. That's the type of wasp there, and they're sealing larvae into that. And so I'm in the process. I went out this morning and got some wood blocks and things, and I'm about to start making these. I also make a wreath out of found objects in my garden. And the birds take it all by the end of the year. It's picked bare, but that just gives me a chance to do another one for them. And I even found a home for my shrunken coconut head. I water the bees. Bees have to have water, and I put the gravels in so that they won't drown and they have a place for it. And I mentioned that we do feed the birds, and we feed our hummingbirds. My front yard is a bird feeder. My backyard is a bird feeder. You see the goldfinch hidden in there? They pick the petals off first. And I have this theory. I'm not the ornithologist, but I'm thinking that they pick all the petals off so the seed will ripen quicker for them and they come back to it. But I watch them. This is the black and white. I'm almost through. This is the black and white of why I do it. Less than 3% of the original tall grass prairies remains, making it more threatened than the Amazon and the Indonesian rainforests combined. 70% of all the US grasslands may be gone by 2100. Kids today will see 35% fewer butterflies and moths than their parents did 40 years ago, and 28% fewer birds, mammals, amphibians, and fish. Within the past 2 decades, the American bumblebee populations have declined by nearly 90%. Pesticides, development, and climate changing are poisoning this bee and destroying its habitat. 90% of the insects who feed on plants are specialists, needing a particular plant to raise their young. This is why I wanted to give them ephemerals to October, November. I wanted the whole scope of that, and that was my goal. We have 50% fewer birds than 40 years ago. 230 North American bird species are at risk of extinction within decades. 96% of songbirds feed only on insects to their young. Native plants support 35 times the number of insects. More than 1/3 of fresh water in the United States is used to water lawns. 5,000 acres per day are converted to lawns. So I shared this with you, and I will tell you this. I have an HOA, and I have a native garden in the front, a native garden in the back. No one has ever knocked on my door and said anything to me. I try to keep the front a little tamer. I threw in some zinnias this year, just a little pop of color, but it's wild in the backyard. I wanted it to look like it happened and that I didn't plan it to look that way. So I randomly planted. I was in a workshop and the leader, I don't remember his name, but he says if it says space at 18 inches, put 3 there. He says that's what they do in the wild. I don't weed. I rarely pull out weeds or grass My hillside garden is all native plants. I don't get it anymore. They're in charge and they do a great job. A lot of people ask me where I shop. Native plant sales is my main one. Grow Wild is worth your drive in Fairview, Tennessee, but you have to have an appointment. Wonder Gift Garden in Kingston Springs, Joy Boven has a beautiful oasis, and go early enough to eat at the Yorkshire Deli on the premises. These ladies from Great Britain, they do the high evening tea, but their breakfast fry up, complete with Heinz beans, is delightful. It is. Look that up and you'll want to go. She has done a great job there. I order online from Tennessee Naturescapes and Izale Plants. Izale Plants provides a lot of plugs for some of the native plant sales. Monticello has an online plant sale. It's MonticelloStore.org. For $10 to $15, I get a nice cup of plant. They take the soil in, it doesn't come out in a mess. I had a mess once. They put me more plants in the mail with just the picture I sent them. They're great, and it's a great plant for $10 to $12 to $15. But they have lots of natives. You can see them online, and they also have a few native seeds. My azaleas came from Wilson Brothers Gardens, and they were shipped in 3-gallon containers, arrived perfectly. Beautiful native azaleas. There's a farm called the Curious Goat. It's Goat Farm too. And those guys do a great job in Pegram. Jason's Native Garden is in East Nashville, and More Garden Center is near me. And I go there and spend more and more. So if you are interested at all, I put this every day on my Instagram, Native Gardening in Tennessee. Just splice it all together and look it up and you'll find me there. I made 3 or 4 posts today, but I post every day. I welcome Facebook followers. I do a blog called Wildflower Wednesday. I have another blog called Healing the Earth, 1 yard at a time. I have morning coffee in the garden, and this is how my garden grows. So you're welcome to join me there. I do post my foodie stuff and my travels. I'm hiking in Iceland next week. But I do put my posts there, my family pictures, and the occasional political riffraff. This is how you can find plants in your area. I'm not going to read this to you, but these are Google searches. You're welcome to take a picture of this slide, but they will tell you what will grow where you are. Many of these sites will tell you what will grow where you are, and you can find great resources. I can't sing the praises of extension services enough. Our extension services are available to us, and they do a great job. I hope I've said something or shared something to inspire you. That's what I did with a small property, and my goal, like I said, was to nurture nature 12 months out of a year. So I'm loving life in Nashville. Come see me. Y'all should do a field trip. Come there and go to Joy's Wonder Garden. And that's just down the road from me a piece. Oh, yes. There. Anybody have any questions?
How large did you say your garden is?
Oh, it's not an acre. It's about a quarter of an acre. Yeah.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. And that's why I'm having to be careful at this point that I don't take out my ephemerals. So, I will not plant anything when I can't see where the trilliums were, because I was doing that. I was planting. There's more. I've got the rare green dragon plant up there. And it's all happy. Now, my native plants aren't all native to where I live, and many of them would not thrive, especially in this climate. I have to pour some water to my hillside because it's clay and it dries out. It dries out really quick. It will hold water after a rain for a good while, but I um I have 3 zones, and water just sprays everywhere, and everything. I didn't show you a picture. I have an owl house, and its only residence has been a family of raccoons. And you talk about wreaking havoc on a garden and everything. They did maybe get one of my goldfish one time. Yeah.
Are you familiar with him at all? And have you been influenced by his
Doug
landscape?
Tallamy is my hero, and that's the one that's my hero. Margie Hunter is a Wild Ones with our group, Middle Tennessee. She has a book called Gardening with Native Plants. And then I use Dennis Hearn's native plants of Tennessee and the Ohio Valley. That's legit for y'all. It's almost everything in there is legit for y'all. And then I have Rita Venables, Butterflies of Tennessee, which would also be the butterflies you see. But as when I see one, I'm coming in looking it up and everything. And I say I see her often, and I say, "Is this?" She and I swap plants all the time, but I say, "Is this, you know, certain butterflies?" She goes, "You're close." And everything. I've learned that in photographing the butterflies, like the dusky wing that I showed you on that bushy brown-eyed Susan, that was sent to 5 experts, and they weren't able to pinpoint exactly which dusky wing it was. But I hope it was the rare one that's rarely seen. But they're back, and they love that brown-eyed Susan, you know. But along the way, I made every mistake in the world, and I put things where it wasn't happy. You know, I was trying to amend the soil, and now I don't. And but when you put the plant in, you know, it sits the first year, it crawls the second year, and it leaps the third. So just be patient with it. In the front, I'm redesigning it because I'm trying to make it look a little neater. It's really wild out front for an HOA, but I'm ready when they knock on my door. I'm gonna say, "Look at this," you know, and yeah, yes.
Is that like
The, the goldfish will get them if they are. They're going to be leaving in about a year, but I'm gonna because I'm going to be in traveling more, and I can't. I'm real good to them, and I don't. So, but yeah, I was trying to get a native floater, and I went out to this aquatic center and bought all this duckweed, and in 3 days they ate every bit of it. So, but yeah, no. Now, the I brought a horsetail that I meant that I'm um that's it's like a hollow. The stem is hollow. I brought a plant that's a horsetail, and it grows around my wet garden. And the dragonflies love that plant, and it's the oldest plant living on the planet. It's the oldest plant we have. I'll show it to you. In the James Bond movies, I love those, but it's hollow, and that was his snorkel underneath. That was historical, but one of you should carry this home. Now, look it up and read about it before you plop it in the ground, because it's a happy traveler. Yeah, and in the right circumstance, it can take over. I pulled out about 120 this year, and they went down on the Cumberland Harpeth, Little Harpeth, and where they were a farm that I like produce was wanting to stop the water from washing so much. and it's the perfect place for them. But I just love the story behind them. In that they were, you know, it's the oldest plant. It's the little long fossils we used to find as kids. That's what that was. On the trains, they used them to clean the dishes and they would throw them off the trains. So they're also in the lower 48 states.